Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are breaking down one of the absolute most chilling cases of found footage we have ever analyzed. We're looking at a leaked recording from an expedition that went just horribly, completely wrong. And this isn't just your standard ghost story, right? The mechanics of what happens in this footage completely defy logic, physics, and even time itself. I'm going to walk you through exactly what four young skeptics encountered, step by step, deep in the woods of Rajasthan. So get ready, because the twist in this case, it literally changes everything we know about how these phenomena operate.
It was exactly 2:17 a.m. The entire village was deep in sleep. In the distance, you could hear the faint sound of dogs barking. The wind rustling through these ancient trees. But on this specific night, there was this heavy, just strange restlessness in the air. It felt as if something unseen was waiting. And that sound, that horrible, dragging, guttural sound, is the absolute epicenter of the horror we are unpacking today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just outside a small village in Rajasthan lies this ancient, totally overgrown forest, and right in the middle of it sits a ruined mansion. The locals call it the Kali Haveli. Now, according to village lore, this isn't just some spooky old house. The locals view it as a literal trap. The legend explicitly states that anyone who approaches the Haveli after midnight is going to hear that strange sound, and once they do, their lives are forfeit. It's a point of absolute no return. But, of course, local superstition often meets modern skepticism. Four friends from the city, Arav, Karan, Nikhil, and Samir, decided they were going to expose the truth behind the Kali Haveli. And they didn't just bring their courage. They brought serious hardware. We're talking high-definition cameras, high-powered flashlights, drones, professional audio gear. It's a classic setup, right? Using cutting-edge technology to debunk ancient terror. They were absolutely certain they were walking into nothing more than crumbling stone and some old myths. Section 1. The Midnight Expedition, Stepping into Darkness. So let's track their actual movements, because this is where we cross the threshold from a fun urban exploration trip into something deeply sinister. At exactly 11 p.m., the four friends entered the woods. In the raw audio from their cameras, everything at this point sounds completely normal. You can hear the crickets chirping, you can hear the wind rustling the leaves, and the shadows of the trees look entirely ordinary. They're relaxed, joking around, but the environment is about to turn on them really, really fast. Look at how rapidly things shift as they get closer to the Haveli. First, the crickets and all the animal noises just abruptly stop. Next, the wind dies completely. There is this unnatural, suffocating, dead silence. And then, the massive door of the Haveli slowly begins to open entirely on its own. Nobody is touching it. The absolute silence here is crucial. It's basically the environment signaling that the supernatural trap has just been sprung. Right before they step into the pitch black of the Haveli, Samir turns to the camera and says this: "Guys, if something happens to us, definitely upload this video." They all laugh, and man, it perfectly illustrates their overconfidence. But that laughter vanishes just minutes later, because the moment they turn on their flashlights and step inside, the cameras capture these deep, unnatural marks carved into the stone walls. Marks that look exactly like someone or something had frantically clawed at the rock with bare nails. And then that heavy, dragging grrr sound echoes through the entire room, coming from the floor right above them. Section 2. Trapped in the dark. No turning back. Despite their obvious terror, they make the fateful decision to follow that sound upstairs, and the true horror of Kali Haveli begins to manifest. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying disconnect they were experiencing. Upstairs, they find an old wooden chair that suddenly spins around on its own. To their naked eyes, there is nothing there but dust. But Karan's camera shuts off, reboots, and for a few seconds, the screen shows a terrifying face with long black hair, pure white eyes, and a horrifying smile. When they look up from the screen, nothing. Later, Ara feels something brush his neck. He turns around and sees empty space. But the camera screen shows a tall black shadow standing directly behind him. The technology wasn't protecting them at all. It was isolating them, showing them entities they couldn't even see in the room with them. Fully panicking now, they sprint downstairs to escape. But look at this timeline. By the time they reach the ground floor, the main door is gone. Well, not locked, literally gone. Vanished into a solid stone wall. Nikhil screams that they're trapped. The temperature plummets instantly. Their breath turns to visible smoke in the camera lights. Scratching noises erupt from the walls around them, and that sound, grrr, is suddenly right on top of them.
Running totally blind, they find a half-open iron door leading down into a basement just absolutely reeking of rot. They stumble into the basement, shine their flashlights on the walls, and the walls are covered in hundreds of names, each with a specific date next to it. And at the very bottom of the list, written in fresh lettering, is Arav's name. And the date next to it is that exact day's date. Arav's hands begin to shake. It is at this precise, chilling moment that the group realizes they aren't just exploring some haunted house. They have been expected. They are doomed.
Let's quickly break down the entities that actually hunt them down, because the footage shows two very distinct manifestations. Right after finding the names, the basement candles ignite on their own, revealing Entity 1, a dark figure with a humanoid body but a face of pure absolute darkness. And from its breath comes that same kbrr sound. Later on, when they manage to break out into the woods, they encounter Entity 2, a girl in white, standing with her back to them. When Samir calls out and she turns, she has no face, just a void of blackness emitting the exact same soul-chilling noise.
Section 3. The disappearances, one by one. The entities weren't just meant to scare them. The group is now systematically, methodically picked off in horrifying detail.
Back in the basement, the walls literally start closing in on them. As Nikhil is frantically praying, this unseen force violently yanks him backward into the air. His friends watch in absolute helplessness as his eyes bulge in terror and he's dragged screaming into the impenetrable darkness, vanishing entirely. Later, out in the woods, which have now shifted, trees actually moving to block their path with zero GPS signal, Karan trips and falls. Arab and Samir turn around, but Karan is already gone. All that's left on the dirt is his camera. And when they look at the screen, it shows Karan trapped in some other location entirely, surrounded by hundreds of black shadows, right before the camera screen violently explodes.
Section 4. 10-year time slip. A decade lost. Okay, so Arab and Samir finally break through the tree line at dawn, thinking they've actually survived. But this is where the story takes its most mind-bending turn yet.
10 years. When Arav and Samir desperately approach the villagers for help, the locals totally refuse to recognize them. An old man looks at them in shock and says, Arav and Samir disappeared 10 years ago. A full decade had passed in the outside world, while they spent a single night trapped in the Kaliha Valley.
Let's move on and see how this builds to its absolutely horrifying conclusion, mapping out the cruel logic of this curse, basically erasing its own tracks. First, the boys check their mobile phones, and the dates confirm it. They really have jumped 10 years into the future. In a state of just broken panic, they run back to the forest. But step 3, the forest is gone. The ancient trees, the Kali Haveli, the ruins, all of it is completely gone, replaced by a flat, empty field. And then, the final step, Arav looks at his camera. The screen flickers to life, showing the dark entity reaching its hand directly toward the lens, whispering, "Now it's your turn," before the screen cuts to pitch black.
Section 5. The curse spreads through the footage. That is where the historical footage ends. But we have to look at the terrifying modern-day implications of this leaked video.
Days later, police found a broken camera on the side of a road. The final recording was visually pitch black, but the audio was crystal clear. KBRRR. The footage leaked online, and this is where the contagion effect begins. People who watch the footage in its entirety are reporting something terrifying. They claim to hear that exact dragging sound outside their bedrooms at night. Home CCTV networks are suddenly capturing a tall black shadow. And the most alarming data point we have? In every subsequent recording a person captures, that shadow appears just a little bit closer to the lens. It's as if the curse has transmitted through the footage, using the recording to bridge the gap right into the homes of those who watch it.
Which brings us to the most crucial takeaway from all of this data, and honestly, a question you really need to ask yourself. If you are alone in the dead of night, the house is completely silent, and you suddenly hear a slow, dragging kabrrr right behind your neck, what will you do? Because the absolute #1 rule of the village lore remains true today. If you hear it, whatever you do not look back. If you try to answer the sound, you disappear. And your story, well, it's going to be the next one we have to analyze. Stay safe, keep looking straight ahead, and we'll see you in the next explainer.